Can you hear us?
Oh, we can't hear the sound. Let's see.
Yeah, no, it's you.
Yeah.
That's the meeting room.
It's not.
My computer will not connect to any.
Let's say we check the TV volume. Make sure it's not like.
That was quite the assumption you made. Eric, can you say something again?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
There you go.
I've been here all week.
Tech support. It's always something. It's always something.
Yeah.
All
Hey
right.
folks, this is Philip Foy. I'm general counsel for Encore. I just wanted to bring that to the group's attention. I am their legal counsel. I'm stepping in as my former role of chief development officer to provide support for Tegan and Allison and everybody else. But just wanted to flag that in case anybody had any concerns. I don't have any issue with the team that's here. I'm happy to step off if there are any concerns, but again, just putting that on there for the record.
I can't go on.
Thank you.
That sounds great. Thanks, Philip.
Sure.
It works for me.
All right. Do we have any? So let's get started. Welcome everybody.
Well,
Good morning. Are we recording?
We are.
Online. Awesome.
Thank you.
Do we have any members of the public present that wants to say anything? No? Okay. And I see also that it says items not on the agenda, but hearing none from anybody else from us, we can do it under other business.
yeah, well, I guess I could do it now. I have one thing. Just a question for this brain trust. There's been some reports of dead birds in our neighborhood in the hamlet by the top corners. It's from the anecdotes I've heard, it's at least 5 in the last week. And there's concern it might be due to improper pesticide application.
Yeah.
So, and I just didn't know. I think the police have been alerted and stopped by the last couple days. And Crystal Lee from the CJC lives in the neighborhood and took a look and cleaned up some of the dead birds and stuff. So I'm just curious if anybody had any ideas, whether there's anything we could or should do
Test the birds.
as a town. If we can get a, if we can,
Yeah, I would think that'd be one way to try to nail down why they,
Would Fish and Wildlife do that?
yeah, but somebody in the state must have the option to do that.
okay, it's a good suggestion.
They haven't
So
been thrown away already or whatever,
Yeah, or
buried or something.
I can ask,
There's
I can
another
ask
one.
neighbors to, if somebody's able to bag one.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
so that's unique in terms of number.
Yeah, it's not something, I mean, I think when I lived there, so we rent out our house now, when I lived there. I know there was at least 1 year that we saw at least 2 dead birds on the street there.
So I get an occasion there, I can't just from running into the window.
I was gonna say, like, yeah,
Yeah,
I've seen
this-
like a bunch of golden finches on the side of the
Yeah.
road recently, and they're just like.
This seemed much more like a poison type issue with some birds dead and some birds in the process of dying
Oh.
on sidewalks and stuff. So
That's too
I just wanted to share that and see if there were ideas, so I'll check with Rural Fish and Wildlife, see if they would accept the sample. To see what's causing it, but
Will you update us?
sure, I'm happy
Awesome.
to.
Cool. Should we move on to minutes around July 17th? Gary, if you have not skimmed these yet, you'll see that you were discussed as a potential nominee to the Catamount,
Yes,
which I also emailed you.
yeah, I did see that.
Which we can talk about after.
Okay. One edit I made just now was I had my name listed under staff present. I
But it
was
was
not
not,
present. It was
yeah.
not. So
You were older last meeting.
You were here in spirit. Where did you make that edit at the top or at the bottom? So you wrote staff, but did you also change it on, should it be changed as minutes submitted by? Or do you still submit?
I still
minutes?
submit minutes, yeah.
Go ahead.
Matt,
Andrew, can you go back up to 6.7?
Oh, no way. Okay.
The truth comes out.
6, 7,
Um,
yes.
Yeah, in here. Is there this sentence, second to last sentence of this paragraph? Kim mentioned the cultural significance of black ash trees for Abenaki people, and people are part of the Odanak Nation who say Wabanaki. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I
Yes,
mean,
right.
you could put like like it's just a different way of saying the same word.
Right. Oh, I see what you're saying now. All right. I got it.
Yeah,
I
like
didn't-
they say
didn't-
Wabanaki instead of Abenaki.
So just delete that, put this in parentheses.
Yeah. Or like Abenaki, Wabanaki, /Wabanaki, I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah. And, I don't know. I don't know what the most respectful, like if somebody were here from those communities, I can't speak to what they would want, but it's both words.
I
And,
wasn't,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying I wasn't familiar with that, so I just copied. what
Yeah, you said
verbatim.
like exactly what I said, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought that I said, to be broadened, and I didn't think I meant just through biological control. I thought I said something like maybe pesticides or biological control.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think you did, and then I was like, yay, wasps.
yeah,
So you didn't want to say pesticides
yeah,
Right.
or,
yeah. I used to order wasps every month for my horses.
Yeah, I mean, it's that Gary can say more about this, but they work, they just don't work aggressively enough.
Yeah,
Right.
That's what I was gonna say. I don't think there's a great control yet
Yeah,
that's super effective, but. Other than that, I guess the pesticides and the injecting in the trees works, but it's expensive and time consuming to do a large area, obviously.
yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I'll
Second.
second that.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Great. Moving right along. We have a town plan. We have the review of the rural land and subdivision design and conservation area. Do we have all the people for 5 on here? Should we?
so this is actually we had a change last minute. Instead of doing town plan, we're reviewing
Oops,
a solar project on Mountain View Road.
I've not read any of that, sorry. All
So
right,
we've seen it before, it's just the
Yeah.
habitat disturbance assessment is now
That's right.
back.
great, thanks.
So I'm happy to give a
Yeah, will you
brief
give an
summary
overview while
of why we're looking at it and kind of what we've been asked to do by the planning commission. So let me share my screen.
That's what I get for reading things ahead of time.
Yeah, it was, so
Okay.
it was a bit late to the agenda because we have, our next meeting is August 21st, but the planning commission's next meeting is the 20th. And so conservation needs to look at it before the planning commission does. And the deadline for comment is after that in early September, so that's why we made that change.
Yeah.
So. Just share briefly the draft comment letter. So, as we mentioned, this is a project you've looked at before. It's solar project on the corner of Mountain View Road and Redmond Road. Last time you reviewed it, no wetland delineation or well, really the wetland delineation is what matters here for our conversation today, had been completed, and so. It now has been completed and it's been determined that there are class 2 wetlands in the project area. And so we put together this draft comment from the planning commission, and planning commission has asked that the conservation commission comment if they would like on the impact to those wetlands. The format for this comment would likely be best fit if someone volunteers to write up a comment to then submit. So someone from the commission volunteers, it could be 1 or 2 people, to just draft something and submit it. That schedule that I mentioned before is really the reason why we're doing it that way.
Because it needs to be done by the 20th.
Correct, prior to that meeting, which, yeah, we don't have a meeting between now and then. So looking at the impact to the wetlands, I'll share. There, go ahead.
It's very tiny. Can we, is there a way to see it?
So let me share the site plan. So this is the site plan here.
It's the Redmond Road Mountain View intersection.
Yes, so. Just orient you a little bit here. The intersection is down in the bottom of the screen here. We have Mountain View Road and Redmond Road. And there are class 2 wetlands labeled here. And then I can also shift to the, this is the,
Oh, there's 2.
well, this is the
actual
the
panels.
plan with the panels.
And the Brennan Woods neighborhood entrance is in the bottom left of the map. For those who are looking to figure out direction.
So the applicant was required to do through the PUC. VHB did a natural resources assessment, and part of that was a opinion on the impact to wetlands, and that's what I recommended that you review prior to the meeting. I'll just pull that up as well. So there's a brief section here. And I'll just. Yes, this is really the key part of this section. I don't know if you want to take some time. I don't just if
Or did
people need time to
others-
just read through it really quickly, we can do that.
Did others get this last minute and have comments? Cause I can skim it while other people are giving comments.
Go ahead, Rudy.
Yeah, so. As I read through this and just thinking about the proximity to the MRF facility application, which we reviewed recently and stuff, I felt pretty pleased with where that ended up. I think what we ended up doing was saying, you know, hey, looking at the fact that you need to disturb some wetland or riparian area. We really did 2 things. One was determine whether there were any other wetland areas that were currently being mowed or not allowed to grow unencumbered, and make sure that that stopped. So there's a chance to kind of check in on land management of wetlands in general on that property. And then the second was the restoration work. We compromised on doing some restoration work, and they were willing to do more than a 1-for-1 acreage restoration work, and I felt personally pretty good about that compromise. And if that is something that we could work out with Global Foundries on their land, I think that would feel pretty good to me. And then a backup option that came to mind too was assessing whether there could be invasives removal, so that the functionality of the other wetland areas adjacent to it or in the vicinity could function better, since we're removing some access to some of that wetland area for some wildlife.
Sorry to interrupt, but I should just also, I would like to back up and just explain a little bit what our role is broadly with the PUC. So the town has what's called enhanced deference in this situation, and it's because we have an enhanced energy plan that we can provide comment to the PUC. The town can't say no to the project, but some comments might be adopted as a sort of condition in the way that we treat permits here. And so that's the level of comment that we're looking for.
Yeah.
So I think
So our
that's
comments go to the state for their consideration as conditions as opposed to going to DRB, is that right?
similar. Yes, yeah.
So yeah, so my recommendation would be to figure out how we can ensure other wetlands nearby on the property are functioning as well as they can, given that there'll be some impact.
Or
A little
even,
bit.
I guess is what you're suggesting too, would be those other wetlands be more permanently preserved?
Yeah.
Yeah, in some kind of mitigation.
Eric?
Thanks. Yeah, I was wondering if we
sorry.
could actually, if we could hear from the project team, just
so
to
that's me.
describe some of their mitigation measures they're proposing in the document here.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Allison Slaney. I am a wetland scientist with VHB. I specialize in regulatory. So I was actually one of the authors on that memo, done a lot of the site investigations for the work and the background work, so I can speak to it a little bit. I guess to give folks in the room more of a broad overview, we can step back a little bit. So there are three, I guess, facets that we would look at for overall site design and planning. So first being site selection. So the site was selectively chosen strategically, or basically, so the array was sited in this area, was selected here to be largely staged in the maintained open field. And that avoids extensive tree clearing, on the sides, the more pristine wetland and buffer areas, bat habitat. So that's the first thing we do is site selection. And then when we get down to site design, we look at how we can actually avoid the wetlands in the proximity. So I think we've done, so some things of that nature would be like the array posts are driven without filler excavation. And I do have some numbers to share with you. So a Vermont wetland permit and a federal wetlands permit has been submitted for these sites. So wetland impact is relatively low. For the Vermont wetland permit, we have permanent wetland impact at 427 square feet, buffer impact at 6,600 square feet. And then for the core state jurisdiction, there's no permanent wetland impact. And then so lastly, the last thing that we would look at, and some of the things that you guys were touching on, is how can we leave the wetland better than we found it? So basically, under the array, we will plant a pollinator seed mix in the upland areas. In the wetland areas, they've been delineated and flagged, and there'll be like a wet meadow planting. So all those areas will be left to, after they're planted, they will no longer be mowed. So, the pesticides, whatever is sprayed now will stop. The mowing that is, happening, once every couple of years will cease, which will help keep invasives out naturally. Planting the natural variety tends to do that. The site will also be monitored for 3 to 5 years for invasives and just the establishment of the overall planting plan that we implement. And then in addition to under the arrays, they've also, of course, also proposing to plant some shrubs around the perimeter fence, appropriate wetland and or upland buffer shrubs. And happy to answer any other questions as far as wetland impact goes that you guys have in the room.
I had one. How do you determine the impact of driving the posts? I know it's minimal compared to digging them up, but just poking a hole in a wetland down 6 or 8 feet has an impact on the wetland.
You got it. So that is that is an impact from a state standpoint. So we did account for that's the 427 square feet. So that's basically the permanent wetland impact there. And then from a federal jurisdiction that was actually not triggered just because it was driven without fill. So they regulate dredge and fill. So it wasn't triggered there, but is a state impact.
I'm thinking even additional impact that maybe it's hard to measure, and that is poking a hole in a wetland. You know, it's more than just the 3 feet around the post. It's drainage wise that could have an impact on function of the wetland. If there's been, I don't know, what would there be, hundreds of posts driven into the wetland? I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but you're basically, you have something that contains water that you're then poking holes in.
Right.
It's gotta have some impact on changing the drainage.
Eric has his hand up.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, Eric, is that a remnant hand or do you?
It's a new hand, but not in response to Gary's question.
Oh,
It's
okay.
about
I
something
wasn't sure
else.
if you were gonna like put on your water sign
No,
for a second.
no, sorry, Gary, I
Um,
can't answer that one for you.
No, I don't think
So,
anybody can, but it's.
right.
Yeah.
But we have done these type of solar ag field plans before, and we can say in 5 years the area is still wetland. So I can't really speak to like the larger granular picture of what it does, but the wetland does maintain in the area as long as it's it doesn't drain the wetland, just the driven posts from the research that we've seen.
But I think you're asking like, does it change the functionality?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to,
Yeah.
it sounds like there's been some evidence that it may not in some cases, but I'm sure every wetland is different too.
I'm Google scholaring.
Yeah,
2016 literature review of solar and wetlands.
yeah.
I don't, okay, so that is just an unanswered question at this moment. Eric, now would you like to?
Sure,
Say-
thanks, Kim. So I just had a question, I guess for Allison, if you can speak a little bit more about this,
What's from?
the last this sentence in the document that says alternatively the project may provide mitigation via the contribution to the Vermont Ducks Unlimited and Lieu Fee Mitigation Fund. I'm just wondering how that option might come about, and if it would be possible to, I don't know how any of this works really, but if it'd be possible to direct that contribution, should it happen, to the town of Williston Environmental Reserve Fund instead of Vermont Ducks Unlimited. Nothing against Vermont Ducks Unlimited, but I'm trying to keep the funds local.
So that's a good question. So mitigation is run through the Army Corps of Engineers, and the only form of mitigation that they do is through Ducks Unlimited or on-site mitigation, which after speaking with the wetlands program, the district wetland ecologists that work for the state, they preferred on-site mitigation in this case, improving the wetlands on-site, which is the mitigation plan that we've proposed. So I don't, so we're not proposing to pay into Ducks Unlimited at all, just,
Okay, got it. Thanks.
I had another comment. What's the long-term plan after this solar array is no longer functional, or is there some plan to try to, get them out of there? Or I assume that has to be some kind of long-term plan.
I'm just the wetlands. You'll have to talk to the Encore team for decommissioning.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
I'll introduce myself. My name's Tegan Koffler. I'm one of the project managers for this solar project working with Encore Renewable Energy. And well, just some context for decommissioning this project. That would be something that would be an option after 25 years of commissioning. Once the project is up and running, 25 years from then, there's the option to either continue the operation of the project with potential, upgrade, any changes that needs to be made or improved to the project, just, equipment replaced, etc., that type of assessment. If Global Foundries chooses to keep the project in operation, we would have an agreement made in 25 years to do that. If it were to be removed and cease operation after 25 years, we have a plan in place for doing that, and that's something that was filed as part of this testimony. There's the decommissioning plan as an exhibit to Jake Clark's testimony. And the question I'm hearing is specifically to, well, once the project's removed, what would the wetland look like, and what is the possibility of the use of the land thereafter? And that is something that would be it would be in Global Foundries' hands. It's their land to decide what the land is used for, or is what could potentially be it might just be an existing field the way it stands currently. But that would be, the use of the land would be in Global Foundries' hands. But in terms of the improvement and how what the land would look like at that point in time, that is something that Allison, I was wondering if you could speak on that a little bit. In 25 years, how you predict this, the maintenance that's proposed, what that would look like down the line.
And just to add to Tegan's comments, I think she touched on everything, which is we have our obligations under our permits. We have our obligations under the CPG for decommissioning. Ultimately, you can't comment on what Global Foundries will do with the property, or we can't make promises on their behalf. That would be entirely up to them as the landowners. But we do have obligations to maintain the property and then return it as it was provided to us under our lease option and under our permits, to the extent feasible. And that's partially addressed here in the wetland permitting process of the Class 2 and the Class 3. What the state agencies put on us as far as the work that we do now and the maintaining of it during the term of the project, and then decommissioning as well.
I think, to just summarize everybody's concerns in the room, I think what we're all asking is, when this project is over, will we have a wetland of the same character and functionality that we currently have? And it sounds like the answer is we don't know, because wetlands are so variable and solar arrays are so variable, and there's not great research about installing solar arrays in wetlands. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would say that the wetland will be the same as it is as it is changed based on the installation of the project and in compliance with the permits that we receive for it. As was mentioned before, we plant pollinator species, we do other agrivoltaics. So our intention is always to try and improve the land as we have it. It's just part of Encore's operating procedures. It's what we do on most of our projects. So we can't say specifically what it will be like at the end. There are a number of projects in Vermont that are we're in the early stages that were installed in or near wetlands, and we continue to try and do research on that and understand if there are impacts, what happens to the wetlands, et cetera. But to your point, nobody really knows, I would say at this point, given the timelines that we've had projects in the ground and, whether any of those have actually been extracted or what the impacts have been long term.
And that be, oh,
I was gonna
can I
say our recommendation could include like, we'd love a master's thesis on this or something. Go ahead.
Oh,
Megan.
just going to add that we have some predictability in just the fact that the land will be, we know what it will be, how it would be used by Global Foundries for the next 25 years. This is what it's proposed to look like, versus if there were no solar projects, there could be continued mowing and alternative. I mean, that would be regulated as well, any alternative development, but just adding that solar has the benefit of what we would have the mitigation plan in place so that there would be field that was previously mowed that's not being mowed, and like Phil added the added pollinator mix and agrivoltaic work that we do. So there's a two parts to this. There's impact, and then there's the restoration work that's in place. So we know, yeah, that's my 2 cents to add as well.
And I'll also add that, we're going to be monitoring the areas that we planted for 3 to 5 years. So with that, if there are any invasives that pop up, we will, we monitor like mortality of like the trees and the plants. So we replant, we do invasive species, removal. And so, obviously no one can say what the wetland's going to look like in 20, 25 years. That's just the natural part of like evolution on any type part of land. But we will make sure that, it's better than what it is now and better than the way it was, currently with invasives and, stuff of that nature. We will make sure all that's cleared out and the wetland is better as long as the solar array is operating.
I just had one last comment about the pollinator species. I vaguely remember I heard somebody say these are pollinator species that would normally appear in a wetland. Because if they're just regular pollinator species, we don't know the impact of that on wetland function. Can you guys comment on that?
I can't speak to that. I'm not sure that that's the case.
Because I'm just thinking, I've seen pollinator species planted among solar quite a bit, and it's great, but you're planting them in a wetland among solar. So
we are not planting them actually in the wetland. So the wetland is delineated. So we'll be planting like the wetland meadow seeding, herbaceous vegetation in the wetland areas. And then those will just be in like the upland buffers and the adjacent areas.
Yeah, apologies. Allison had the correct point. We would plant appropriate species in appropriate areas. It wouldn't just be a wholesale, let's throw wetland species everywhere. It would be in the respective areas.
Great.
So we have about 10 minutes left on this item. Is that true? Yeah.
Sure.
And we need someone to volunteer to write a comment, which perhaps Eric has already done and put in the chat.
That is correct, Kim.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
So I don't know if it's possible for us to pull that up and read it and review it as a group.
I'm also happy to participate if we're unable to finish this in.
Yeah, I'm happy to review that as well.
Let's see what we got.
I'm not sure why it doesn't show my chat on the computer, but
It's Andrew, probably be easier for you to just copy and paste it into a Word document anyway. The chat formatting is a little weird.
It actually is good for us on the giant screen, but. It probably for the folks at home.
Would it be helpful if I read it aloud for those who aren't able to see the chat?
Certainly.
I can put it to everyone in the meeting if you want.
Yeah,
As
let's do
well.
that. That way everybody can see it. There we go.
I guess number 3, applicant should demonstrate that the solar array, once installed, will not have a significant impact on the functionality of the wetland. I'm thinking that should be changed a little bit because, well, once it's installed, if it does, they're looking at solar arrays, they're looking to see what happens to wetlands. I mean, it should be studied, but I don't know if you can demonstrate it, because what are you going to do?
Yeah,
Evaluate
good point. I was just trying to address Gary's concern around the poking of the holes in the wetland with that one.
Could we change it to applicant should evaluate and report on the impact of the solar array to the functionality of the wetland at the site location?
Can you say it again for,
Should evaluate the impact of the solar array to the functionality. Oh, I think I said actually evaluate and report on, yeah. And then you can delete everything between array and impact.
next slide editing? Hold on.
Yeah, and it sounds like that is what this team is going to do anyway, is that they do evaluate that.
Go ahead, Reed.
Yeah, I know that we're short on time, so I'll try to be brief, but I am a little bit concerned about not mowing and only 3 to 5 years of monitoring or maintenance of the area inside the array, living next to a wet meadow where we have done A/B testing of mowing without removal, mowing with removal, not mowing with removal, and not mowing without removal. The two that perform best are mowing with removal and not mowing with removal, meaning manual removal and stump treatment. The areas where things are not mowed are very difficult to maintain. In just a few years, they pretty rapidly get invasives. So I'm concerned, ironically, I'm concerned about not mowing and only doing removal and maintenance for 3 to 5 years. The solar array, I imagine, is going to be here for at least 20 years, I would hope, if not much longer.
25, yeah.
Yeah.
I can speak to that a little bit. So,
Yeah.
while we won't be mowing, it is a permit condition that we can remove anything like invasives or anything larger that would grow up under the array. So again, just maintaining what we want under like the wetland vegetation that we want. That promotes the
So,
biodiversity
comment
and the
about-
low-grown shrubs.
So they're coming about 3 to 5 years. It's for the life of the array that they'll be.
We will be monitoring the wetland for 3 to 5 years. But then, Encore is able to manage the vegetation under the array, just that they're not allowed to mow.
Okay.
But we would okay, you're monitoring for 3 to 5 years, and then after that, you're still maintaining but not monitoring. Is that accurate?
Yes, but so it'll just be basically like large things that grow under the array. They'll be able to remove with hand tools or whatnot. We'll be monitoring for 5 years just for the health and success of the wetland and the vegetation that we've planted. So basically, what has grown in voluntarily, what has died, and if we need to intervene and plant more things. That's the monitoring aspect.
So could we say we recommend a monitoring plan be
Wow.
considered for the life of the project?
I would, yeah, I think for year 6 through 25, that's a long time for invasives and,
To take hold.
yeah, and propagate other areas.
That kind of raised another question in my mind, Reed, is just your change in how the wetland is treated is gonna, what are you gonna use as a baseline for wetland function? Because it's a function now as a field that's mowed, and now we're gonna not only put solar arrays in it, but we're also gonna plant other trees, change how often it's mowed. I mean, it seems like it's pretty difficult to monitor any kind of function in a changing wetland that's more than just adding arrays.
Yeah. And the state agencies have set this monitoring timeline for a specific reason in order to gather data and based on the functionality and what they understand. I would ask, or I would be curious to what extent y'all have engaged with the wetland program and understood sort of how they approach the wetland permitting and the assessment of impacts and just general regulatory viewpoints on this. Not to say that we welcome y'all's comments, like this is a huge part of what we do. We like to get involved in our communities, but also want to make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel and that everybody's on the same page as far as what the science is and what it just driving the decision making at the state agencies in for y'all.
I mean, we work with wetlands all the time and, you know, requiring buffers, and we understand a fair bit about wetland function. We have several people on the committee that are familiar with, you know, impacts on water systems and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what we do work on it all the time, and we think about it a lot in terms of modifying function, not only in the wetland, but in the buffers. So if you've got the extent of these wetlands plus buffers probably makes up, I don't know, over 50% of the property. So it's a pretty big concern of ours to always try to keep wetlands as functional as possible.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, I heard 2 people volunteer to look over this text that Eric drafted, Gary and Reed, ahead of the 20th, the meeting on the 20th. Do we have, in the last 2 minutes on this topic, any final comments or questions that folks want that group to consider? And then what would be the process for that, Andrew? Do they send it out? We have to do an electronic vote, or do we just draft it and send it out?
I think you can vote to like appoint them to just issue that comment, and they can send it to me.
Okay.
And then it'll get to the PC.
Do we need a motion on that?
Why not? It's, yeah.
We do. I'll move to, sorry. I'll move to, have Reed and Gary draft the comments for the Conservation Commission for the letter.
I'll second. Laura?
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? No, that was everybody that's here. All right. Thank you for volunteering to do that. And thanks for your time, folks.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Yeah.
If you
thank
guys
y'all.
have any more questions, please feel free to send me an email. And we'll get those addressed.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Like the whole, right, yeah.
Sounds like bees.
Yeah.
That's a little.
For whatever it's worth, like, well, during a bunch of that, I was like looking for papers. There's like almost nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's an opportunity for. Like,
There's gonna be more of these type situations coming with renewable energy proposed in wetlands, so we
Yeah.
have to
Yeah,
get
it's a tough
good at
one
it.
to do though, like I
Yeah.
said, is if you've got the current function and then you've got the function after you add the solar arrays, then you've got the function after you change what's in the wetlands and the buffers.
I mean, who would that be, Mindy?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, let's move forward. Sorry, I'm off here. Okay,
Evan, just one more comment.
yeah, go ahead.
It's not to do with the wetlands at all, but Andrew, do we know who's claiming this renewable energy? Who has the renewable energy certificates to it? Is it gonna be Global Foundries or will it be sold to whoever highest bidders or, you know what I mean? Cause you have to have a legal claim to the renewable energy with, they call them renewable energy certificates.
So the real answer is I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just
In-
curious. That would,
Melinda may know in conversations with just about the Global Foundries project, I believe it is global.
I would
But
assume.
I don't know.
But if it isn't, it'd be cool if there was a local ability for people to buy those certificates and claim renewable energy.
I believe it has to be global. The reason they're doing these projects is because of the new regulations. They have to produce a certain amount of electricity from renewable sources as a utility, and because they have enough.
Oh, that's right, they're considered.
They're considered utilities, they have to comply. So this is them getting ready to comply.
Yeah. Thanks. So in that case, it probably will be available locally. If, well, I guess they use all their own energy, so, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they'll use more than they're producing.
yeah.
Yeah, they were digging in there yesterday, and sifting, I think it was archaeology.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I'm fascinated by that.
I know, me too.
Like, and also the fact that like you can't see the arc map, like we can't see the arc maps.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm
We
just
can't
like,
either.
it's so fascinating.
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
All right, so we have this Knob Hill Road subdivision review. Do you want to give an overview?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, and we have Malcolm here, who's the
Thank you
owner,
for
Hi,
coming.
Malcolm.
Mr. Willard.
Thanks for coming back.
Good to see you all again.
You too.
I will give an overview. Something that I've noticed just going through the staff notes is that sometimes there's some questions about what the site actually looks like. So I'm just gonna show you the site plan this morning first. Just so you can.
A map's worth 1,000 words.
Exactly.
Yep.
Instead of me describing it.
That old adage.
So it's kind of small, but see the outline of the site here. And there is an existing home here. There's lot 1. Lot 2 is up in the top here. It's to the north. It's 2 acres. We have a building envelope here shaded. With that kind of black shading.
Mhm.
And then lot 3 down here, also 2 acres, another building envelope. And there is a second plan. Which gives you an idea of the general home location within those lots.
It's an example of building within those envelopes.
Right, and then they also have the septic information. That's actually what this plan is. So. That's the general plan. I'll move into my staff notes here. So this is a discretionary permit review of a proposed 3-lot subdivision at 699 Nob Hill Road in the ARZB. The subject parcel is 10.49 acres and contains 1 single-family home. Since the parcel is less than 10.5 acres, it is not subject to Williston's open space protections provision, which requires 75% of the parcel to be conserved as an open space lot. Project is proposing 2 new single-family homes or lots for them. It's actually not proposing building them, to be clear. Lots 2 and 3 will both be 2 acres and will be served by on-site septic and wells. The proposed project will create less than 4 dwellings and is therefore exempt from growth management and inclusionary zoning. That was a bylaw amendment that passed just after pre-application for this project, which was in October of 23. So in September of 2023, the Conservation Commission reviewed the pre-application for this project and required a habitat disturbance assessment, which was completed. We've been working a bit on that, so you're familiar. You recommended that forest clearing is limited to the greatest degree possible. Forest clearing is proposed within the proposed building envelopes. as well as for the on-site wastewater systems, which is allowed under chapter 31. The building envelopes were larger than 1/2 acre in the pre-app. They've been corrected to below that threshold, which is a requirement of the bylaw. Yeah, that gets into forest clearing. There was comment, which I'm not sure if was corrected or not in your pre-application review about a trail easement. There is no proposed trail easement on the official map. Or sorry, no desired, I should say. trail
Yeah, it
easement.
wasn't like where we had identified.
Correct. So there's a recommendation in there, but that's not consistent with the official map, and no trail easement is proposed. Lastly, the applicant needs to submit a runoff and erosion control plan, which they have. So move into PRF priority. This parcel is prioritized as medium for significant wildlife habitat area. The parcel is both for habitat and wildlife travel corridor. This is why the requirement for habitat disturbance assessment was triggered.
Yeah, some really nice land there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The HDA concluded that the project will not have an adverse impact on the surrounding wildlife habitat. It did identify 2 vernal pools on the neighboring property and the associated intermittent stream that crosses the southwest corner of the parcel. The biologist recommended that the applicant relocate the proposed access and building envelope for lot 3 to reduce the possible impact on salamander and frog migration from those vernal pools. The applicant has already relocated the location of that building envelope. That recommendation is also just included in the recommendations, even though it's been done, because that's just policy for how we do it. None of the subject parcel is mapped as uncommon, rare, threatened, or endangered species, and none were found as part of the habitat disturbance assessment. Same with unique natural communities. I will mention that the vernal pools are listed under unique natural communities, but it's on the neighboring parcel.
Yeah.
Parcel does not contain farmland of statewide importance. So that 27.8 does not apply. For scenic viewshed, the parcel is mapped as both primary background and secondary middle ground viewshed area. The pre-application also discussed this. The building lots will be screened from Old Creamery Road, which is the nearest adjacent public road. It is possible that it will be visible from Sunset Hill Road.
Yeah, maybe in the winter, maybe.
Yes, but it's
That'd be pretty hard to see.
that was called out in the pre-application. Yeah, in the pre-application, the Conservation Commission didn't make any recommendations regarding the viewshed. And you can see there that the bylaw kind of leaves it open for discussion with the applicant.
Does anybody know, can you see your current house, Malcolm, from Sunset Hill Road?
You can see my neighbor's house because they have a white chimney on the outside of it. But that's at a higher elevation. Both these lots are lower elevation and with the woods around it. Definitely the one at the lower on the southeast side. There's no way you can see that at all. And the other one with the height requirements and the elevation up there.
Yeah.
You might be able to see the top of a chimney in the wintertime, but with the vegetation that's around there, I don't think you could see it at all. Certainly not from, a near, Old Creamery Road or anything nearby. One of the reasons I'm doing it is to keep the rural feel. And other than the 2 driveways, you're probably not gonna see either of the other houses from my house right now.
Nice.
So it's and also making them 2 acres, it's a 1 acre zone instead of just a 1 acre lot, making them so that they're larger and fit in more with the neighborhood that's there.
So, moving into the other components of this report, there are no special flood hazard areas identified on the subject property. For watershed health, a runoff and erosion control plan was required to be prepared by a professional. This is because the project proposes to disturb slope greater than 8% and is therefore considered high risk under our bylaws. The applicant has provided this plan. For wetlands protection, the habitat disturbance assessment did identify a suspected class 3 wetland in the northeast corner of the parcel. And that's on the proposed lot 2. The bylaw does state that the DRB may, upon recommendation of the Conservation Commission, require that the applicant do a functional assessment of those class 3 wetlands. No development is proposed within or immediately adjacent to that area. We can take a look if you're interested. And for watershed protection buffers, no watershed protection buffers are mapped on the subject parcel. And as previously stated, the applicant shifted the building envelope away from that intermittent stream. What follows are a list of findings and draft recommendations. That is all. Thank you.
Do we have any discussion on the findings and recommendations? Questions about the findings, suggestions for the recommendations?
So when the recommendations say alter the position of the development envelope,
It's already
it's
done,
already done, that's what
but
I
we
thought.
have to include it because it's our policy to include the recommendation anyway.
Oh, got it,
The DRB will be the one to look at it and go, yeah,
Okay.
this complies with that
Okay.
recommendation.
Yeah,
understand, okay, thank you.
seems like you've done your due diligence.
I tried very hard. Especially with regulations getting changed in the middle.
Right, thank
Because
you.
I started this 2 years ago,
Yes,
so.
yeah, it
Okay.
typically takes a long time and it took a little bit longer with the
Yeah.
new process for us. Thanks for your patience. Apologize, but
I'll make a motion to accept these recommendations as written.
I'll second.
Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor?
I,
Great. Thanks for coming in.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
good luck.
yeah.
All right, and we are ahead of schedule now, yeah?
We are, yes.
Amazing, okay. Love that.
Can I just make a process comment?
Yeah,
About the HTA? This was the one that we reviewed the draft HTA with the biologist and the final one, and this wasn't one of the biologists on our list, the final HTA I thought was really well written, was easy to follow and very complete, so I thought it turned out well. And there was actually a change.
Right,
substantially,
A
yeah.
substantial change, a substantial benefit as a result of the HDA through this process, so who knows whether it's just one case, but
So far, so
felt
good.
good, yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, has there been any change in how we approve of a biologist to fulfill the HDA?
Not yet.
I'm just curious.
No, I haven't done an RFQ yet. I would like to do that before some larger projects
Yeah.
that might be on the horizon come in.
Yeah,
But
because I think we kind
Yeah.
of set the rules, but then we allowed them to be altered.
yeah,
And now we don't,
Mhm.
I don't feel super comfortable with where it's at right now.
okay. Yeah, I think our conversations really helped me kind of hone in on your intent with those process questions. I think the RFQ is the way to proceed, so we have that legitimate list that we can point to an applicant and say, here's our list, this is why we're selecting
Totally.
these two options. Mhm.
And then, I want to make another suggestion, which is if we are going to review draft HGAs in the future, I think we should have some sort of like bulleted list of best practices, because last time we got into discussing it as if it was the full HGA. And we were trying to make findings and recommendations sort of based on it, and so I think it would help us as a body to like have reminders of here's what we do and don't do if we're reviewing a draft HGA, to make sure that we stay in bounds.
Yeah,
I
and
don't, I don't want to influence the biologist.
right. I have to refresh myself on the specific language in the bylaw, but I think Simon was originally doing that draft review as kind of a like, this is a new process.
A
Let's,
pilot thing.
yeah. I think that the important thing to remember is that time for the biologist to be here goes to the applicant as far as cost and,
Yeah,
you know, just that's reflected in the price of the HDA. So,
yeah. I did find it valuable to have the biologist join the call when we were reviewing the HDA. This time, we did it at the draft stage and the biologist wasn't here for the final, so it might be better to just have them be there for the presentation of the HDA. So we can ask questions like, when you say this in the HDA, what do you mean, or what do you observe?
right.
Um,
And the contracts that I have done have included that.
Okay.
A meeting.
Okay, as opposed to seeing it at the draft
Yes,
stage, okay,
yeah.
so maybe it's not an issue.
Should we have revisiting this and like firming things up for future processes on a future agenda?
We're gonna review the RFQ.
Yeah.
And when you have it ready, so it
Yeah,
can be a
okay.
time to
Okay,
Yeah, I think that's
confirm.
cool. Does that satisfy your concerns?
Sure, yeah, that makes sense.
All right, should we do Mud Pond?
Chase might not be here yet.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, right, because we're so far ahead. Amazing. We could do other business and like plan future meetings.
Mhm.
Um. Is there other business that's not listed on here?
Well, there's this, the CCFC
Yes.
appointment. If you wanted
Right,
to
oh,
wanted
we
to
will
discuss
discuss
we could-
that.
You could do it in the meeting here.
Tell me if you're interested.
I think I've got too many other things going on right now.
Okay.
If especially if this, you were interested as well, right? Or was somebody else on the commission interested?
I am interested, somebody suggested you, I felt like if you wanted to do it, I would keep my Thursday nights.
Yeah, I just got appointed to be a president of another group that I don't really, that's gonna increase my involvement there, so.
Yeah,
I'd rather avoid it now.
that's fine. But I think we're not gonna vote until next time, is that true?
Yeah, Dave had. We discussed that a bit, and waiting until he's back,
Yeah, that
I
makes
guess it
sense.
makes sense to respect that, but that was also kind of waiting on a discussion.
Yeah,
between You
He
two,
seemed
and
to be
so,
supportive of whoever it ended up
Okay.
being.
Yeah.
so-
Right.
So he wasn't interested in doing it?
No,
Yeah.
No,
I think the other aspect of that, and fine addressing it right now. Was that Dave did receive a comment about a concern of Kim having a conflict of interest. In serving on the forest committee, and I would say that staff has. Done a in-depth review of that, and we have no concern of a conflict of interest at all.
I view
More
it
than
more
happy.
as a plus.
Right, that's
because
how I would
she's
see it.
Super knowledgeable about this type of stuff.
well, just so that everything's on the open, the conflict of interest is that Ben is on the board, or the supposed conflict of interest is
Oh.
that Ben is on the board of COFC, and that somebody felt that. There would be like undue influence to make me,
You better.
yeah, exactly, which. I'll just say, one, my marriage is not that way, and two, I don't see the town as in. Like opposition to the outdoor family center,
Right.
and so I just don't inherently think that that's a problem. And also it doesn't, I mean, maybe more importantly, it's
It's not
actually
a
not a
conflict.
conflict of interest.
Yeah.
That's not what the term means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if that is brought up, we take that seriously and we look into it. We've fully reviewed it and happy to discuss further with any individuals of this committee, but we have no concerns over a conflict of interest and we can leave it there.
I think the other piece of that to me is that Kim will bring issues to us and we'll discuss them and, you know, if necessary and have our influence on it. I mean, that's kind of what the
Totally.
reason for this.
And we can vote to change appointment at
Yeah.
any time.
Right, yeah, if I'm super corrupt, you can just
That's right.
kick me out.
That's right.
But the
One
thing
way to
is,
get at it.
I actually think it'll be useful for Kim to know the inside scoop of what's, because it would be nice for you to bring it to the committee and see what's going on
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
at Catamount.
yeah.
I'd move that we appoint Kim as our,
Do we want to
Yes.
wait for Dave I can't tell if he wanted to be here for it or not, because it was on email.
I think the important thing that he wanted to do was disclose that he had been contacted about that, and I think as staff perspective, that is important to disclose.
Okay,
I think we've addressed it.
Okay.
And there was, the discussion about you two and
So I second Reed's motion.
oh, do I call all in favor? Any discussion on the motion? It's me.
Anything, Eric?
I am good. I have no discussion on the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Aye.
And Kim, we have a meeting tomorrow night.
I know that you waited.
You waited for that.
That's amazing.
That, yes, good timing.
Okay, I'll,
We can talk.
yeah.
We need to appoint your children.
That's
so
short
that-
notice.
Yeah, can you appoint my kid? Actually, I just asked, I was like, can my children be on this search committee?
For childcare.
All right,
Get some.
We had Shayla in yesterday. I was meeting with her in Chapin for the planning commission and she brought her son Sebastian. He's sitting here. He had headphones on, but he was in the meeting with us.
I pre-pandemic actually brought my kids a bunch of times, because that rug
Mhm.
out there
Grab your cars or
is
whatever.
like super entertaining and it works.
There you go.
I think they're too old now to be entertained by a rug for an hour, but
Fair enough.
um,
It was good. He was watching the movie and he was laughing at the movie. And so we're sitting here having our conversations and then there's just laughter going on. And so
yeah.
that was good.
That's great.
While we're waiting, my thing, I can talk a little bit about, so I did about this Family Forest Research Center. I did reach out to Brett Butler about the question of like approaching landowners who might be interested in conserving their land, and this is like the least helpful charging situation possible. They're not, I don't actually have the report, I just have like every possible projector connection.
Kim, I have enough power now. Do you want to just switch? This is Andrew's charger, but if it fits your.
Oh, yeah, cause look at that with the UVM issue laptops.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
There's a
Thanks,
chart,
Gary.
there's a
Yeah.
outline behind you.
Should you wanna present? let me know.
You got it.
I think it's plugged in now, right? So I reached out to Brett and said, hey, we have identified a bunch of parcels in our community that are of high value and that are privately owned, and we're curious like about the work you've done on succession planning and what the best way to like get a sense of how many of these folks have thought about succession planning. We talked about a survey, and he responded back that like he didn't think that he's done this in his town, and also Family Forest Research Center has written a lot about succession planning and also like curates this Zotero library of like globally research on small scale forest owners, and a bunch of it includes succession planning. And then what was our extension forestry person that preceded Ally, Mary?
Oh, shoot, what's her last name? Such an S, I think. I know what you mean.
In any case, she did some succession planning stuff. His thing was like, don't do a survey. I think it would. I don't think that it would go super well. And then he sent me a couple of documents about talking to landowners, about just like thinking about putting their land into conservation easements. So like more narrowly than succession, like succession planning could include that, but it also could include keeping your land out of that and like handing it down to your heirs or subdividing. It's just like any type of planning. And then I responded and was like, thanks, this is super helpful. Would you be willing to come to one of our meetings? And I got like, I'm on vacation until the 5th reply, so I can follow up with him.
Thank you for doing that.
This
Yeah,
week,
yeah.
but I don't know how we could just read the documents that he sent and take his advice of like surveys are not the way to go. Maybe focus groups are a better idea. I could follow up and ask if he wants to come in and like talk through something. I don't know.
I know we have some, sorry. I don't know if other people had comments too.
No, go ahead.
I know we have a number of rural landowners who have done succession planning. I'm thinking of like Jim McCullough,
Right.
thinking of like Dan Boomhauer, others who are interested in talking with and supporting other rural landowners. So I think focus group style sounds attractive in that regard, in that you can invite people who have already done this and
Right.
invite people who are trying to start thinking about it.
Right.
Um,
I mean, the
Not
thing
bad.
that the person whose name Gary and I can't remember. There was a person who was an extension forester in
Yeah, I
Rubenstein,
wish I could remember.
and she left. And now we have a different person who's amazing, but isn't a social scientist. This is like really into carbon.
Yeah.
Does great work.
Mhm.
We're having coffee at Williston Coffee Shop tomorrow morning if anyone has any like carbon questions that they want me to talk with her about, and then she could also come in, it would be great. Just a different issue.
Yeah.
Hey, Kim, was that Kate Forer?
No,
No,
no.
it's Mary
Mary.
Sisnick Lake or something.
But Kate actually is a great person to bring up, because here's where I was going with this, is one of the things that Mary did work on was like near peer mentoring of forest owners. So like basically what Reed was saying, like I did succession planning and here's how it looked for me. I'm gonna share it with the group. And instead of having like an expert come in and be like, here's what you should do, it was like neighbor to neighbor. And Kate also now is doing that work in her new role, right? Like she's leading an organization that does that work and organizes a lot of near peer mentoring sort of workshops and learning sessions. And so like maybe that would be an interesting way to go. But that's, I guess, like the difference is one approach is about us taking the pulse of people in town and figuring out what they're thinking. And the second approach is like educating people through their neighbors. And maybe we could do both at the same time. In any case, I just wanted to let folks know, like, one, I reached out to Brett and he sent me some resources, and then two, we could figure out how we want to talk about like what we're most interested in for future meetings.
That sounds good to me. I need to log off to get my daughter to her camp over at the school, and then I'll join you in person in about hopefully 10 minutes.
Cool, see you soon.
All right.
Okay, there,
Siscox?
yeah, it's something like this. I just
don't know.
looked it up and I couldn't find it.
There was a master's thesis that was about like.
Find her based on publications, right? It's like,
I'm like,
what was the
well,
thing that she wrote? Let me look
what else
up.
is on that paper? In any case, they're just to say that like there was some of that work in the state,
Mhm.
probably in Chittenden County, because that's where her office was. Then
It just
I
seems like
heard
really
it
good
wrong.
advice, to, that survey is not gonna be as effective as like
Mhm.
in-person kind of like gathering, and then also I love the mentorship idea. I know that's something I just discussed with Melinda Scott about the fact that I'm trying to design long-term heating system, decarbonized heating system for my home, and there's no resources or partnership to be like, here's somebody who can guide you through the process.
Right,
How to build a team of design, engineer, drilling, well testing that I need, like, you need somebody to guide you through the process, and I think this is similar where it's like, there's so many possible outcomes.
Right,
And there's so much expertise required, and sometimes it.
and it's highly personal.
And it's very personal.
yeah,
what you
And it
wanna
could be like
do.
super emotional.
Right, so I think.
Yeah, I think that's what I was about to say is it's tricky to develop a group that you might want to talk to. I mean, we could do it, I guess, from our
Networks.
quantification. Well, I'm thinking of, we could get lists of properties that are important to us, but then, you know, like you said, do you meet personally with them because it is a personal thing,
Yeah.
or do you meet as a group first? I think that, you know, with guys like Dan Boomhauer, they can say, hey, I've done that, here's what I went through, here's what sucked, and here's what didn't, you know.
Based on what Kim said, I was imagining that you do both and you start with a community forum event. You say, we're gonna have a community forum event to talk about why the town cares about succession planning and what we're doing to help landowners navigate that. And one of the things we're doing is we're having this kickoff event, and then we're trying to find mentors, people who've done this.
I mean, we could invite everybody, but particularly invite specific
Yeah.
people. And I think having somebody there, I don't know who it would be, that does that kind of succession planning would
If you
be
can have like
great.
subject matter expert and then some landowners who have gone through it, and then you invite the rest of folks who have land that is, I guess, any Willistonian who wants to think of a succession
But
planning, but
specifically-
especially maybe mail out some invitations to folks who are in the ARZD type thing.
I wonder if we could just like host an event with Kate For, so Kate For was with UVM for a really long time, and then she left like not that long ago, like maybe a year ago, and now she's the executive director of Vermont Woodlands, and they do have like they could say legacy planning,
Cool.
and they do like, no matter where you are in your legacy planning process, we're available to help. Email us with your request for assistance. Like, I wonder if we could have,
They could host the event.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
could we just be like, we'll do logistics, can you come and like do a thing?
Yeah, I've seen these pop-ups all the time, like in cupboards or. in
Yeah,
Valley Forest, and they, you know, this most recent one is you and your family are invited to a forum to meet one-on-one with land managers, conservation, financial, and estate planning professionals to answer questions about passing your woodlands on to the next generation. Or what would it mean to conserve your land with a land trust, et
who
cetera.
is that, Coverts?
Cupboards, yeah,
I mean, like that, they're also like an amazing
Yeah,
group that would,
right.
or also the organization that Nancy Patch.
Oh, now I can't remember what it is, but she was a county forester.
She's
before.
like. One time I interviewed her for a research project, and like in the middle of it, I had to turn off the tape recorder and be like, when I was a college freshman, you came into my class and you were the first female county forester in the state, and I was,
Yes.
and like she was like, can we get off
Star
the
Trek moment.
interview?
You're making me embarrassed here.
Cold Hollow to Canada. They also do it,
yeah.
but I wonder if that's, it's like a slightly different. Focus than what we were talking about last time, like, it's not, can we figure out what everybody that we're interested in is thinking, it's more of like an education, but could we combine them somehow where we like. I don't know. Everybody who's interested might show up, or we make some.
I just think there are people who are not interested in the town approaching them about their land, but they would be interested in showing up to an event to learn about their options.
Maybe,
And coming out of that event, they may realize, okay, I should at least have a conversation with the town.
Yeah, the town's one of the,
Or now I have somebody to work with, maybe a neighbor or somebody who has land, someone of mine who's done this before.
And we could send them a postcard that says, this event is happening, but not put, so. You are a high priority parcel, we didn't
Yeah.
say that.
No, or just
Yeah.
say the town is interested in seeing conservation of the
Yeah.
rural landscape and forests in town, and so we're encouraging you to attend.
Right.
Just like, we're not asking anything of you, we're just encouraging you because it's
Right.
we think it's in your interest, and we think it's in the town's interest.
75% of family forest owners want to leave a land and legacy, but only 20% of family forests remain in the family in the long run. There's no citation for that, but.
It's a big gap if it's true.
Okay, so I guess like a next step could be like at a future meeting, maybe we could like look at some of the materials that Brett sent. And we could like review like one or two organizations that we feel like we might want to approach. Would that be? That'd be something we would want to do. Should I just email Kate?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
Yeah. Yeah, you could even say, here's what we want to do. What do you suggest?
Yeah.
So do you want to have a slot to talk about that and then maybe have some homework reading those materials you sent me? Is that the?
Or I could just. I
She
could
might
just
just know how to
email
do
her
it.
and she
Okay.
could, and just see if she wants to come into a meeting. Do you want me to do that first? And then that's less reading for
Yeah.
people.
You ask them, I mean.
I just assume that everyone wants less reading all the time,
Yeah,
college students and adults.
Wonder if that's Chase.
Think
Because it says a different name, but
that's. I emailed Chase and just let her know that we were ready, so.
there she is. Hi, Chase.
I have the wrong name on here, but it is Chase.
we were just like, do we think we're being Zoom bombed?
Thank you for having me again.
Welcome back.
Thanks for coming. Yeah, so we have your proposal in front of us. Do you want to walk us through this? First of all, I'll just say, we were just talking about how I assume nobody wants to read long things. And so I really appreciate
One page.
how concise and tight this is.
Yes, I agree.
Well done. Do you want to just like give a quick overview and then we can ask any questions?
Sure, that sounds great. Yeah, so the thought here, which we talked a bit about last year. Oh, perfect. Great, you'll have it up too. So I gave a bit of an introduction last time to some of these ideas of trying to address some of the goals of expanding natural resources inventories. Pardon me one second, there you go. And then also having kind of an educational aspect of the project, looking through the lens of fern communities and fern diversity within Mud Pond Conservation Area. So after our conversation last time, which was really helpful, it seemed to me that there was definitely an interest in the educational component of that. And I know I was looking through some of those action items and goals in the management plan again. So the thought here would be to have 2 or 3 deliverables, really, just a little. I think that with a third one, the scope might shift in one direction or another. But having one that's really just getting at, for the Conservation Commission, an inventory of fern species. It wouldn't be exhaustive, it would be a bit more descriptive of identifying fern species throughout the conservation area, specifically describing different communities that are maybe more in like the wetlands section of that Kettle area, and then a bit more upland still on the west side of that road. And then also doing, I know we had talked last time a bit about maybe just doing like a very brief description of fern communities on the east side of the road as well, where there's more of the biking trails. This, I know we also, there was interest in having the survey methods documented so that could be translated, either redone in Mud Pond or translated to another location as well. I think with it being a bit more of a descriptive inventory, that the methods might not be like very particular, like quantitative statistical based, but there's also, I was thinking there could be a possibility of taking one small section of the wetland area and actually doing some, marking out some kind of either transects or quadrats within a particular area that someone could come back to and look at and sample later. The second deliverable would be a one-page pamphlet or just document that could be offered up at the entrance to the trail and online, that would mark out waypoints along the trail, along the trails around the Mud Pond Conservation Area, and talk about what fern species are there, what that reflects about the diversity of conditions at the site. So what that could indicate about hydrology, light, soil characteristics, wetland communities, and kind of that perspective. And then the last one being sort of taking all of that information and then reframing it in the form of an outdoor classroom guide. So materials for school teachers who could bring students out to MPCA for a field trip to use it as an outdoor classroom and encourage that form of use. And I think that could look like sort of guided materials and activities, and that are a bit more geared towards young people, and then also could include like some worksheets for students to do as they go around if time allows. So my thought is, in terms of methods, to work on this month and next month in terms of doing the field work. Well, I can identify ferns, and then in that time kind of mark out where these locations, take a lot of photos, do the real work behind the inventory, and then over the next few months put together these deliverables. If you want to scroll down a bit, the last thing I wanted to mention was we had talked a bit about including a potential consequences section to address any concerns about going off trail, about really conveying to visitors why it's important to stay on trail, and also how to interact with vegetation in the conservation area. So I included this to basically just say a couple of approaches that I would take are for any off-trail field work. I would kind of assess surroundings and make sure that I'm not going into any areas where I would be significantly disturbing vegetation or wildlife, any particularly dense areas where that kind of trampling might cause disruption. And then also, as visitors come by, greeting them, kind of explaining what I'm working on and why I'm off the trail, and also why it's important for visitors to stay on the trail. And then also including some material in the materials, notes about why that's important as well. So that's kind of the basic outline of it. I have a couple of questions for you as well, but would love to, hear any questions or concerns that you have.
I just have a comment. I think it's great that you're gonna do part of it more quantitatively, so that we could have somebody come back in 5 or 10 years and see if there's any shift in presence or in quantity of certain fern species. I think that's excellent.
Yeah. My only
Okay.
comment, I
Yeah,
think it's awesome if you have like some type of, if the self-guided tour is like scannable on people's phones in some way, like if there's a QR code. I mean, I don't know if something could live on the town website.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, we can do that. We also have a Bitly account, so we can,
Yeah,
I don't know if you have to pay for that, but I can generate a QR code for you if you want. That's very easy.
yeah, I think it's just like people might take all the pamphlets and then who knows if they'll get restocked, but if it could live on the town website and then be linked easily scannable, then that's like, yeah.
that's a
Yeah, I love the proposal, Chase. One thought was another place to make sure that some of the pamphlets are is the town hall has like a rack that they have all the things. So when people come in to register their dog or pay their bills or whatever, the tax bill, they can pick up pamphlets. That's another location to consider. If time becomes an issue, I just wanted to say, I think creating an interactive student-oriented activity is of high value.
Okay.
So like, I think I would vote for making sure that that is awesome and ready for classes to do field trips over looking at the country park side, just to provide some description. I think that time would be more valuable in the schools being able to get right to doing a high value outside activity.
Actually, I'm also wondering, like, your dad does Four Winds. Do you feel like that would be a group to interview?
Yeah.
Like, how would they use it? Or is that like so complicated because they don't really get the kids on the bus?
I don't know what, I mean, you have some experience perhaps with
I used to
groups.
do 4 Winds.
Yeah.
But in groups. Yeah, I know that, well, to your first comment, I think, Chase, when you were gonna go across the road, it was gonna be kind of, it wouldn't take you very long just to quickly see what was on the other side, whereas the number 3 would take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And it's really great that it's there because that's maybe something also a CVU student group could do.
Like creating the
Yeah.
activity paper
right.
or one pager.
Yeah, if you don't have time.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and a QR code at Mud Pond would be good too.
Yeah. So when you show up at the trailhead, you can scan
Right.
it if the pamphlets aren't available.
Right.
Yeah. I was trying to know if I finished my thought. Oh yeah, so on the interactive thing for children, yeah, so there's Four Winds is a good, if you're not familiar with the Four Winds program, it's a science-based learning curriculum that has volunteers coming into elementary school and middle school, kindergarten through 8th grade to do different projects and teach on different science topics. So they might be a good group to ask because they know the different ages and what activities.
Or just like, what would they use, right?
What
Like,
would actually get used, yeah.
like, even if it was like, they might tell you something that's actually kind of quick, because I don't think they're only in for like a one block.
Yeah.
From what my kid's schedule looks like, and it might be as easy as like just repackaging things that you would have put together for a pamphlet.
They also might be example materials to say these are materials that students at different ages respond really well to, so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You'd be like, oh, okay, I can take that activity and make it about ferns, let me put it on my thing.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful having the perspective of one, people who would actually be implementing it, but also with the actual educational knowledge of how to guide those.
I can give you a contact over there. My father is very active in that program. And they can also give you the name of a teacher or two who does a lot of would be a likely participant in it as well. Would like review it and provide comment if it's something you're interested in.
Okay,
I don't want to
yeah.
have it for you, but you know, sometimes it's helpful to have people who know the kids and know what will work.
Would it be worth connecting Chase into the person we've been talking to at CVU, the project-based learning, was Tim?
Oh, and then she could hand off everything and let them take it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's something we could.
Yeah, we
we could do that. I was imagining that the student learning deliverable would be targeted more to the K-8 kind of like younger students, but there are CVU students who are interested in doing projects. And so they could take it and they could create like a high school version that's maybe more advanced or something.
Or they could create it for the younger kids.
Or they could create it for the younger kids if you run out of time, yeah.
But I mean, I think 1 and 2 sound very reasonable in the time that you have, and they would be useful.
Expertise is,
And then if you have time to do some amount of 3,
that's amazing, and if you don't finish it, we have options for like where it could get directed.
Yep.
In the future.
That's great. Yeah, and I think the fundamental field work will be the same across the board. So that can be a bit flexible as we go along after that. We can keep talking about what's within the scope and how we might adapt if necessary. I did have a follow-up question about the quantitative side of it. So if I were to pick a plot and do some kind of actual, quantitative vegetative sampling, are there particular areas of the conservation area is there a particular area that you'd be interested in having that for? I know there was some discussion last time about a special interest in some of the wetland areas. I'm not sure if there are particular regions of the cattle that would be of interest.
I think you would probably, since you are the one enjoying looking at it, I
Mhm.
think you would to put those.
Okay.
That would be the best.
Yeah, I agree with Laura. I guess I was also gonna suggest, I don't know how many of these quantitative plots you were thinking of doing or have time for, but if you have time for a couple, then one, maybe pick one in an area that is more heavily trafficked, I guess. Sees more people walking through that area. And then maybe one in a spot that is less disturbed.
Okay, great.
Do you have a sense of how many plots you could do in that quantitative work?
I think it would probably only be a couple. Yeah, I want to say that to be conservative about it, that if I was doing sort of like a standardized plot with quadrats within it that were randomized, I could picture that taking kind of
Yeah, I want to expand on Eric's thing. If you could possibly do it with more statistical validity by picking a couple in each type, so that in the future we can, have some kind of a statistical assessment to show is the difference significant or not.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's something where I'm not sure if you would want to, like, I could leave, flags or something out that mark those plots for someone to be able to come back later.
Yeah, or GPS works
GPS.
pretty well nowadays too, I think.
Yeah, within a
With
couple
a
of
permanent plot kind of hidden, but then you get to it to try to find it by GPS. I don't know.
Yeah.
Mhm. That sounds good. And then, do you have, so I know on the website there are a few maps. Do you have like the shape files for the trail maps or any of those layers?
Yes.
I can share those. Yeah. I think I don't know if we have one that's specifically my pond, but yeah, I will share. I've done a deep dive into that as part of a separate project, and I'm discovering data all over the place. Saved in different places, and I'll ask Melinda really where that will probably be the best use of my time.
That's great. That'd be fantastic especially for being able to mark out make the pamphlet and mark out where the stops are along the way.
Mhm. Yeah, this is a really exciting project, Chase. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really excited to do it. And it's been great to have feedback from the commission, people who kind of know what the goals are and yeah, have a sense of what's going on. So I really appreciate it.
Chase, I don't have your email address, but if you Google Williston Four Winds Science Program, it has information and contact there. Just so you know where to go to find if you want to follow up with somebody from there.
That's wins as in WINS. Wins.
No,
No, WINDS.
Is it? I always thought it
Four
was-
directions of wind.
yeah, 4 winds.
Oh, all right, never mind.
Yeah.
Oh, I had one kid go all the way through the school and it was more than halfway. And all these years, I thought it was WIN. That's something else they do.
They also win. That's science.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Any other questions or comments for Chase?
Yeah, you can contact Andrew or me at any time if you have a question.
Yeah.
And I can relate.
Definitely, yeah, I'll follow up with those shape files and yeah. Any other questions? I think if there was like questions about printing, that might be something out of our budget if we wanted to do that on a larger scale.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't think that would be overly expensive. So,
Okay.
And we'll look forward to seeing products in September
Yeah.
yeah.
Later, yeah, thank you.
or later. Yeah. that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
fine. Well, it's not conduct field work in August and September. Okay, yeah.
We'll eagerly await the looking at things.
Yeah, I'm happy to provide updates too, if that would be helpful. And Laura, yeah, I know you had mentioned being interested in going out together to the site. So if you want, we can find a time to go on a little fern walk together.
Okay, just let me know when you're going out and hopefully I can make.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Chase.
Bye-bye.
Well, I believe that's the end of our agenda. Is there any, well, we have upcoming meetings and other business, which we already discussed, I think. Yes? Is there anything else?
I mentioned that I can't remember if Matt gave you an update, but I have heard from Nick Warner at Winooski Valley Park District. Global Foundries is trying to proceed with the project and the parking lot access.
Okay.
I heard from him 2 weeks ago, and he was hoping to have something back to me around this week, but I haven't heard yet. So as it is with this season, with I think with the flooding, they were also busy, and so yeah, we're bit by bit, but the last meeting sounded promising.
And he's on a schedule for our next meeting, so I saw.
That's the plan. The project will go to the DRB. And so there's sort of a, well, we won't be doing a habitat disturbance assessment, but when that application comes in, we can just review it in that same timeline. And I think the goal would be to have at least those 2 meetings before the DRB meeting to discuss it, if you have any feedback. But the goal is to keep the parking lot pretty similar to what it is, both as a cost thing and also as an impact thing. So, yeah.
Right.
Are we going to have room on the next agenda or upcoming agenda for the town plan piece that we had to put for today?
That was the goal is for the next meeting, I think. Yeah, we kind of shifted that around. So we're trading the solar was supposed to be next meeting.
Okay.
So we'll at least have hopefully a solid hour of that.
Did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm just interested to know when we're next gonna take up the ERF funding issue, if we want to change.
September 4th, yeah.
Okay, so pretty soon we can discuss further the funding model, because I think I'm trying to think about timeline, like when we would actually implement a change and whether it matters whether we take it up immediately or wait a little bit.
Well, it says discussions for upcoming meeting. I don't know if you had planned that out.
Not specifically, and actually I've been talking to Eric a little bit about what was appropriate for us to discuss at this stage.
Yeah.
And that's an ongoing conversation, so I think we'll wait. I don't think that will be a discussion at the 21st. I'll finalize that with Eric before I think we have anything solid.
Town manager.
Eric Wells, yeah, not that Eric. Yeah. Eric with a K. Not a C.
I have one other thing that's not on our upcoming meetings, but that I just feel like is like the thing that I'm stressed out about all the time right now, which is flooding and flood preparedness. And I just have a PhD student who has like a flood related dissertation and who's halfway through data collection in Waterbury and it flooded again and now I think I don't know what we're gonna do with that data.
Maybe we'll collect some more data this weekend.
Yeah,
I just like
Saturday
don't
after,
even.
Thursday and Friday. yeah.
Right, like, and so many, like, I know that Williston is not the epicenter of the impact, but I also feel like we should as a body be thinking about. This-
Heinsberg and Huntington got hit real hard.
Totally, and
in July.
I feel like it's Luke Burchetti, it's like, you're funding it. I don't know.
So you should be worried too.
It's gonna be fine, Eric.
Well, good opportunity to quantify.
But like the biggest thing that I'm seeing is that like people's culverts blow out, right? And then if they need to upsize their culvert, but also they need to go buy diapers, and so they're just moving their culvert. Like people are so busy responding to a crisis that they can't prepare for the next crisis, and I don't want us to be like that as a town. That's fine.
Yeah.
So I have some very recent experience with the culvert replacement.
Yeah.
In working with the town Public Works Department, and the town is not responsible for culverts on private roads like mine, or even culverts that
Would you like
move
this
water-
document that Luke made of funding for?
move the water alongside a public road but crosses under a private road. It's interesting.
Yeah,
The thing that popped in my mind when you brought that up was using ERF money to buy buffers next to rivers to create better riparian
right,
zones
can
and
we
things
just
like
talk
that.
about flood resilience planning? Maybe that's the-
Yeah.
like, can we make
Gotcha.
like a flood resilient, and to this point, when we prioritize, when we did the ERF prioritization, I don't think we were like, oh, flood resilience is a thing, like, it just wasn't in our calculation.
Mhm.
I think that's something that Richmond does too. Their ERF has I think their funding for their like conservation, all of their conservation work is that like one account as opposed to being specifically for like acquisition and such. And I think a lot of their money has gone to making repairs. And that partly is on trails. But I
Yeah,
think that it's.
which like, that's a whole.
Right,
uh,
I'd hate to have our
Yeah,
public
I
works get a hold of ERF money to make
Right.
repairs, it'd be gone and you know.
And also they're repairing really unsustainable, like, it's like, we're putting a ton of money into
Put
this
it right
trail.
back into the
And it's
problem.
immediately getting blown out again, yeah.
Mhm.
Right, so I don't know, it's a long, big conversation.
It's also something that can go in, to the town plan, like a pathway of establishing a flood resilience.
Right.
But it could be under climate change and we could actually
But I think
talk about other issues under there.
for sure, I just wanna see us be like flooding is Vermont's climate change issue of the moment, right? And
Yeah, and it's gonna continue.
We do have a watershed health chapter that I think will be different from the last plan.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's just the way it ended up. It's last on the list, but my planning commission group, my next assignment is working on that. And Eric, I want to maybe try to get some help from you if I can.
Those, it seems like it's gonna show up in other sections, though. It's gonna show up in agriculture, things agriculture impacts, it's gonna show up.
Totally.
Right? It's gonna show up, right? I think.
yeah, it's
It's
like
the type of
ruining people's crops and,
Well, yeah, between drought and flooding.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it's gonna, I mean, it's gonna make them
Temperature extreme. and all that
Farming.
stuff, too.
go from barely viable to not viable at all.
We had an interesting conversation yesterday about our working landscapes chapter, and I think the planning commission has kind of struggled with that and the value of. You know, we associate open fields that are farmed with the views in Vermont, and it's the landscape that we're used to, but.
Is it the
Is it-
landscape of the
is it-
future?
Is it the landscape of the future, and is it the town's place to decide
Mhm.
that fields are, paid? Or is it more, is the goal keeping the rural rural?
Right, yeah.
And yeah, that's. Something Shayla will be fleshing out, so. I'm excited to see that. And you will also take a look at that. So,
Cool. Any other business topics for upcoming meetings? For whatever it's worth, this student did make a like 1-page document of resources for private landowners who need support to replace and upsize culverts.
Thank you for.
You know, I'm
putting
off
that
the clock at the moment, right? I've got 5 minutes that I told I'll put my basic program hat on.
Yeah. Boy, that'd be like.
The art just sorted through in your head. I didn't hear that. No, I didn't.
Well, the final comment is just, I've been in a bunch of much less functional board meetings and committee meetings than we have, and I just wanted to express thanks. This committee, so much better. With all the experience and following process.
And willing to listen to each other too.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks for joining us, Reed.
It was that 1 pager, I thought, how we promised we would do it. We're doing